Did you survive the big pullback? Well, we didn't really get one. That's right. Everyone was expecting the FOMC meeting to be a big sell-off into it when we already got the big sell-off prior to it. And I did warn you guys about this around noon yesterday. I talked to you guys a little bit about what I was expecting on Bitcoin, and well, we ended up pushing all the way to about roughly almost like $70,000. We're going to be talking about it. We're going to be addressing it. But overall, we survived the FOMC meeting, which we knew wasn't going to be much in terms of the overall market price action. But volatility definitely was there today, which we will address. Welcome everyone to the channel. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you become a subscriber to join us along the journey. As we do look at the market today, again, nothing too crazy. Price action across the board for some altcoins is looking pretty juicy on the 24-hour span. And you really need to start paying attention to altcoins that are strong against Bitcoin in terms of their Bitcoin pairs, because they will show you where a lot of the money is to be made in the short term. That way we can take profits on them and put them into altcoins that are not really moving too much. If we look at the top 500, we could see some nice gains across the board. A lot of these are not too significant, but for an example, like Hbar chain, I did mention this in the Discord that I was looking into buying it, and it is up about almost 16.5% on the last 24-hour span. There's a few other great projects that are up today, 10+% gains, which you love to see. But again, this is not alt season. This is not altcoins going absolutely parabolic or anything like that. It is just some nice gains after having a major pullback in the overall market. But the FOMC meeting did happen today. And even though, right, the markets are bouncing back in a little bit of a decent way, as we look at some stuff across the board, market cap wise, stuff like that, I don't really want to look at that too much. I want to look at the fear and greed index and also Bitcoin dominance. The fear and greed index has been neutral for some time, even going all the way back to roughly like April. The end of April was when this really reached down to about 47. And I even said then, like, hey, we're at that neutral point. This is where you really want to start focusing on the market a little bit more heavier than prior. But also Bitcoin dominance. Guys, Bitcoin dominance has been losing some steam. Nothing too significant just yet. I actually do think that Bitcoin dominance will take one last little move to the upside. Nothing too crazy to actually help the next big move happen on Bitcoin. And that next big move on Bitcoin, well, we're going to be talking about it in this video. But let's first start off with the FOMC meeting. So the FOMC meeting keeps rates steady, projects just one cut this year. So when we look at this, there was no cut. I see a lot of people getting excited about a cut. This is the problem. A rate cut will siphon gas out of the market. A lot of people are confused on how a rate cut will work, what it will do to the markets. In my opinion, I look at a rate cut as bearish. I'm actually very happy that we didn't get a rate cut. The best scenario for a rate cut would be a rate cut right before the elections. That way we see that blow off top, because that's what a rate cut will do. It will allow for stocks to go a little bit parabolic, but then ultimately lead to a massive correction and a sell-off. So I'm very cautious when it comes to a rate cut. I'm kind of going against the grain here because I know that you guys are probably hearing like, oh, we can't wait for a rate cut because it's going to be so bullish. It's very bullish in a short amount of time for that blow off, but the steam gets lost very fast, and that's why I say like it's going to siphon the gas out of the market in a very fast way. So I want to actually see the major move in the market prior to a rate cut, and then after we get a rate cut, I would probably be selling into the euphoria and the last major blow off top if we do get that. But it needs to be before elections, because they won't let the markets crash before elections. I want you all to succeed this alt season, so I put together a full list of tools that you guys can utilize to track where the largest whales are putting their money in this space that could ultimately net you a ton of ROI. I'm also giving out 30 free crypto gems that are fully researched and even broken down into specific risk categories. Both of these guides are completely free. All you have to do is claim your access right now by utilizing one of the links down in the description below. What are you guys waiting for? Make sure that you guys have access to this, especially for this alt season that is nearing. Outside of this, right, I also want to go over to inflation. US inflation falls to 3.3%. How funny is that? That's pretty comical, right? 3.3% on inflation. Let me ask all of you out there watching, does it feel like 3.3% inflation when you go to the store, when you leave your house and you go get gas? Or how about your electric bill? How does 3.3% inflation sound to all of you out there? Because in my opinion, in the US at least, 3.3% is definitely not the inflation rate. And it's funny because Polygon did respond to this and said actual inflation. And it is true, right? Like the actual inflation versus what they are telling us, it's a lie, right? And I want to say one thing because I've echoed it for a while now. Election year. We are still in an election year. They will not implode the markets. They are not going to do anything that causes the markets to go down, at least until after November. That's when we need to be very, very focused up. And we need to make sure that we are aware of what's happening. Right now, the markets are looking good. Everyone's a little happy. Inflation's not doing too bad, right? In terms of what they're telling us. This is because it is election year. Now, outside of this, let's take a look at two charts. This is the US government bonds 10-year. This is breaking down, and it actually lost the overall structure here. Why am I very happy about this? Well, this should allow for risk on assets to go a little bit crazy. Go back to 2023, right? This started to sell off at the end of 2022 into the beginning of 2023 for a little bit of time, roughly until like about the end of January. Altcoins are going pretty crazy. Then it started to gain momentum in February, and this is when altcoins were starting to top out. And it's because once this does start to gain momentum, it's actually very bearish for risk on assets. So as this is starting to lose momentum here and lose the structure, it's actually very bullish for risk on assets like crypto, for example. But at the same exact time that the US government bonds 10-year yield is starting to lose this major pace and it's losing the structure, guess what? The dollar. I've been following the dollar, as you guys are probably all aware of, and the reason why, for a little bit of time now. And this has been faking us out a little bit. Just recently on the daily, I want to actually go to the daily. We just had a major sell-off from the resistance zone of roughly 105. And as you guys do see, it wicked below structure. Now, there was a few days where we closed below this. Ultimately, what we want to see is a weekly candle close below the structure. That will tell us everything that we need to know about the dollar. And we're waiting for this thing to break down below the structure because what this means is risk on assets will go absolutely parabolic. And I don't think that I need to tell you guys that because, I mean, just go back to, October when this started to reject heavily up here around roughly 106, 107 almost. I mean, the candle wick here, 107. And this had that massive sell-off into the end of December. And although it was gaining momentum here in January and so, the market was still going pretty parabolic because, as you guys do see, we were still at the midline. We were not gaining a ton of momentum. Into the middle of March is when crypto started to lose some steam. And that's because the dollar started to break out. But now that's weakening. And now that we're at this point in time again on the dollar where it's pretty much make or break, the market is just brewing for a big move. And even as we look at Bitcoin, right? Yesterday, well, I will say at noon, right? Because it was noon. I outlined this move going back to the recent FOMC meeting in March, where we had this 12.24% move to the upside. We had a 6.09% move on the FOMC meeting today. We ran up all the way to $70,000, almost $100. Nothing too crazy. And then we sold off back down to like 68K. One thing that I want to share with you guys is that I do think that we are going higher in the short term. But we still need to focus on a few levels because we could ultimately shake out some of the market still. And what will that look like? Well, on the daily, as you guys do see here, we want to maintain above $67,326. We don't want a daily candle close below this level. A daily candle close below 67,326 will put us on the path to 65,500 and possibly even lower, retesting this bottom trend line here at about roughly like 62,000, 63,000, somewhere within that range. Now, I don't think that we're going to do that. Like I said, I personally see us chopping a little bit here around the $67,326 level, and then we go pretty parabolic to the upside, breaking over $72,000, which is the resistance zone. It's like 71,800 some dollars that we've been trailing against. So we might chop a little bit up here before the next big move to the upside. And this will actually break over the March highs around almost $74,000. And this will set the tone for what's about to happen, which is $80,000 to $100,000 on Bitcoin before the end of the summer. I'm still looking at that as a major possibility and ultimately what I'm expecting. Now, beyond Bitcoin, right? Because as Bitcoin does look good, what about the altcoin market? So as I said, back over here, altcoins are starting to gain momentum. I mean, it's no big secret. I mean, the 500, even all of the altcoins out there, a lot of these are, just trash meme coins. But there is still some nice gains within here that are starting to move to the upside that are not meme coin related. Usually you want to look at the top 500. On the last 7 days as well, by the way, I will say, again, a lot of meme coins, but there is some legitimate projects within here as well that are starting to move heavily, like Rose, for an example, or Injective, or even Polymesh. There's a few projects within the top 500 in the last 7 days, like True as well, that have been pretty green. Nothing too crazy when it comes to True, but for the most part, altcoins have been gaining a little bit of momentum. Now, as we look at Bitcoin, I want to look at Bitcoin and dominance just real quick and show you guys what we are looking at. So again, on the weekly, we had a little bit of a fake out, right? We had a little bit of a fake out before this gained momentum again. I'm expecting this thing to top very, very soon. I don't think that we have much longer on this. I think that by the end of this month into probably like the middle of July is when Bitcoin dominance tops out. Now, for those out there that have been saying, well, Nick, you were expecting by the middle of June, by the beginning of July for this market to heat up. Yes, the market will heat up, but we're not talking about alt season. We're talking about just the market itself heating up in a large way, which I'm still dead set on. Even when you look at Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin has been starting to heat up. So now we focus on, when is Bitcoin dominance going to break down and when is alt season officially going to start? Well, even as we look at this chart, major resistance is right around 50, almost 6%. I don't think that we're going to have that major breakout above 56% unless, and I say unless, Bitcoin goes on a massive tear against altcoins. And what would that look like? Well, it would essentially be Bitcoin and dominance going to about roughly 57 to possibly 58% with like a candle wick above it, like this back in the beginning of April. Now, even if that is the case, I'm still expecting the entire market to erupt by the middle of this month, into the end of this month, into the beginning of July. Now, outside of that, as we look at altcoins, right, in the altcoin market, this thing is just ranging. I mean, this is not like a crazy chart. Go all the way back to like the end of April, right? This is what this chart's doing. Nothing crazy. And we're just waiting for that big breakout to the upside. And I do believe that we're getting close to that point. We just have to be a little bit more patient. Like I said, by the middle of July, altcoins should be starting to go crazy. By that point as well, Bitcoin should be well over $75,000. We should be closing in on 80K. And that's why I say like the market should be erupting by the middle of this summer. Now, outside of that, as we do look at altcoins, XRP, XLM, Hbar, QNT, all of these charts are also very similar, where all they're doing right now in the short term is this. And they're just kind of bleeding out against Bitcoin while they wait for the big move to the upside. Right now, XRP in the demand zone, not much has changed since that video around noon. Again, we're kind of having a nice little, uptrend starting here. We really want to break over some recent highs. Ultimately, what I want to see from XRP is regaining the mid zone of like the 50 cent region. I would love for us to regain 56 cents and ultimately break out of this upper trend line. Now, beyond that, XLM, very similar to XRP, not much of a difference here. We're still just kind of ranging around that, 9.5 to almost 10 cent region. As for Hbar, again, around that 8.5 cent zone. Looks like this could very well have been the bottom. We still need to be watching closely. We still need to gain some momentum here. Ultimately, what we want to see is a flip of like the 9.5 cent zone, regain 10 cents, and start a little bit of a much larger move to the upside, ultimately regaining the trend. The trend is roughly around like 11-12 cents. That's what we want to see on Hbar in the short term. But outside of Hbar, QNT. So recently, this just had a full retracement to the 786. This is where we should be bottomed on QNT. If we lose $80, okay? If we lose the $80 level, prepare for this level down here to be targeted, which is $65 to almost $74. This is where I would be bidding heavy on QNT if I already didn't have a significant stack going all the way back to like that middle of well, it's not, yeah, it's around like the middle of 2022. It's like around May, June. This is when a lot of people started to bid heavy on QNT because it was macro support. So if you don't have a bag of QNT, watch for this level to possibly be targeted if we lose $80. But like I said, I think that we should be bottomed here. I'm watching to see if we do bottom here, because even on the weekly, right, this is where support lies at $85 almost. So let's see what happens here on QNT. We should be bottomed. Hbar, again, a lot of these altcoins are just ranging right now, waiting to see what happens next. And as we look at Bitcoin dominance, I do think that it's close to its top, while Bitcoin itself, you know, this is what Bitcoin looks like on the daily. I mean, it's pretty much mimicking what these altcoins are doing on the daily, because right now Bitcoin dominance is pretty significant at like roughly almost 55% or so, almost like 56%. So as Bitcoin dominance is that high, most of the altcoins are not going to do much until Bitcoin dominance breaks down. And what we want to see is Bitcoin actually break out of this $72,000 level. It's going to take a little bit of time, but for the most part, nothing too much has changed. But I will say this, prepare accordingly, because we are being lied to because of election year, which means the big storm actually hits these markets around 2025. And what I mean by that is that's when the markets flip bearish, in my opinion. Again, I could be wrong, but I do think that we top earlier than what most people anticipate and expect. But that's my opinion. You guys don't have to listen to me. But overall, what I will say right now is, yeah, we're starting to see a big move brewing in this market, and I truly believe that. And again, time will tell if I'm right or wrong, but so far we have been dead on with this move. Let's see what happens within the next week or so. I think that by that point we should have our path forged on the Bitcoin chart, which will ultimately lead us to, you know, the last major impulsive move to the upside on Bitcoin, where Bitcoin dominance does top out, starts to sell off, while Bitcoin does kind of grind against the top, allowing for altcoins to go parabolic. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on if you guys want more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.